Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online, news that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Anthony Moreno. On the program, we discuss issues facing the city of Las Cruces. Joining us is District 1 City Councilor Cassie McClure, who is serving her first term in office. You may also know our guest from her syndicated column, My So-Called Millennial Life. Cassie McClure is also a member of KRWG Public Media's Patron Board. Cassie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
I'd like to kick things off by learning a little bit about what you've learned in just your, as you started your term. What are some things that may have been a shock to you?
You know, it's been sort of a fire hose. I've been sort of lucky in the sense that I've had sort of exposure to the city. I worked with Las Cruces Utilities to write articles for them, so I had a sense of some of the issues they were having. I was on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I had kind of an overview, but then learning what other things we do, what other services we provide has been really great in learning how we do these things and the people who have the passion for it, and that's what I've encountered in the most in the last 4 months.
What are some of your top goals as you kick off your first term?
Right now, I think a lot of people need to be heard in different ways. I think when we talk about things like public safety and bringing jobs to the economy, what does it look like on the ground level? And a lot of times I don't feel like I have the right background for this, so I'm listening to, you know, what is the work being done already? How can I help that work? What do people in the community feel that they need or would like to see? Those are things. So I'm having lots of meetings. I'm trying to talk to a lot of people. By all means, I want everyone to kind of reach out. You don't have to be in my district. I get a lot of that too, where they're like, I'm not in your district, but by all means, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you.
One of the big issues, public safety, of course, was a big issue in this election recently. Also, currently in Las Cruces, a big conversation is happening on public safety. What are some of the things you think we can address immediately with public safety?
Well, I'm encouraged by some of the things that are already in place. I think we have a lot of respect for Chief Story and who's been doing a lot of good work with his police force. I also think that we've gotten support for the Real-Time Crime Center that's going to help a lot too. We got legislative support, and there's going to be funding to at least get that going by the end of the year. It's an idea that they're using, basically bringing all the data together so that they can watch it, not just cameras, but making sure the agencies talk to each other, that they can get a sense of, if we can see it happening, maybe we can send a patrol officer down there. So things like that will have more of an immediate impact. There's some legislation that's happening in July that should help him enforce some of the things that he's looking to enforce as well. So I think a lot of the process is going to be working with our legislators in the next year to say, these are the needs we have here as a community. What can we do to support that change at the state level as well?
Is there any concerns or pushback from your constituents about bringing more cameras into your district?
I haven't heard it yet. I've heard sort of the concerns about, you know, what is that surveillance going to look like? But I think it's similar to where you see, say downtown, you've seen the sort of the cameras in the air. That's kind of similar to what they're going to be using in different areas and pulling all of that together. Having one area where they can kind of have a staff member kind of watching it. To have it all the time, I don't think they're going to be able to do that, but like a slow way of basically taking all the data together.
What seems to be the biggest issue with public safety in your district?
Drugs. I think we've seen a huge increase in fentanyl since 2018. That's what I'm understanding. That's driving a lot of it. We have a huge measure of poverty too. So when all of these things coalesce, we have problems. And I think that's what people are seeing. So when businesses don't feel like they're being supported in terms of, hey, we're having break-ins, there's a lot of issues in terms of dialogue with, you know, what are we doing for that? We can talk about a little bit more, say, like initiatives like Project Light that they've been able to do to say, hey, you know, if somebody's in a mental crisis, we're sending people out to be able to see if we can get them the resources they need. But I think we need to be a little bit more explicit about those are the things that our fire department is helping us do right now.
with Project Light, that's something that may have some limits when it comes to staffing, hours.
Yes.
Of course, another limitation perhaps on that. Is there any conversations about more investments in that?
Absolutely. I think we're going to I just talked to Fire Chief Smith, and he was saying that he's going to bring the year of data in May. So at that point, once we have data and we can actually show, look at how this has been helping, this has been alleviating some of the workload for the police, this has been getting resources to people, I think we can definitely have a way of putting that better into the budget, and I think that'll work in the same way that when we're building the budget right now, that we can integrate that.
What other concerns do you have when it comes to public safety?
I think going back, it's a matter of making sure that we make people feel heard, that when they come to council, that we understand that this is their livelihood to a lot of degree. And when they have the passion for what they do, they get very heated. And I don't think that's wrong. I think we should be able to listen to them and say, okay, what can we do specifically? Do we need to do more patrols? Is there anything that we can do? Or do you know about we have a storefront repair program. Is that something you've had the opportunity to use? What else could we do for you? I think that there needs to be more conversation. So right now, I'm encouraging that. I think the rest of the council is encouraging that too. So here's hoping that, the business community will also engage with us in that way.
The city's taken steps with the storefront repair program for folks dealing with property crime at their business.
Yes.
This is an issue that's kind of been going on in Las Cruces for some time, and some may say it's getting worse. So what do you think are some other issues, perhaps besides reimbursing people for the damage, that we can do to address property crime?
Well, I think when we think about how we structure our cities, a lot of times we very much separate the commercial from the residential. So if we take downtown, for example, and we had added residences above some of the businesses, you have eyes on the street, you have people, you build community. Once you build community, you really build a way to kind of negotiate. I've seen this person 5 times, I've seen this, I'm paying attention to this. So looking at how do we balance density and it doesn't become just a empty lot at a certain point. How do we build that so that we build actual community that watches out for each other?
Getting to that community that watches out for each other, how do you build that?
No, how do you?
Tell me about that.
I wish I had, the sort of background in that, but I think it's a lot of, you need to have, it's all of these things coming together, because partially you need to feel safe, but you also have to be engaged, right? So a lot of times you have to take that trust in saying, when I hear people say, I don't want to go to our parks because I feel unsafe, you should still go. I mean, I understand that there might be that conception, but go and see what the parks are really like. I haven't hesitated. I know that we had, crimes at Apodaca Park, but I still take my kids there, and they enjoy it, and we have times there. The pickleball community is super heavy there too, so it's a matter of being there. It's a matter of being in community, talking to other people, and building that step by step. It's a slow process, but those are the things I'm willing to do, and I'm hoping that others are too.
How much do you think fear plays a role into our perception of public safety right now in Las Cruces? Yeah.
I think to a large degree. I think people understand that our city is changing in ways that are hard for them to understand, especially when you see the unhoused and you think to yourself, oh gosh, I come from a really privileged background. What does it mean for me to be here and for them to be there? And not knowing how to make that change for them. So I think a lot of times we look to local leadership to make that change, and then we look at what are the resources we can offer with the budget that we have and what's already in place. So a lot of times it's talking about it, it's being very explicit. I think Chief Story is doing a great job with the town hall. We have another one coming up at the end of April. And those have been really helpful to say, okay, yes, we can move the unhoused from one area, but where do we take them? So what kind of facilities do we need to create? And is that an ask that we need to do from the state?
The issue with the unhoused in Las Cruces, do you think we have a problem with it, or do we have a problem with the perception of it?
I think our situation is not unique to what's happening all over the country, and I think when we think of it as a problem, it's an indicator of the things that are wrong in society. We don't have housing in the ways that we should. We don't have mental health treatment in the ways that we should. So when all of that comes together, yes, we're going to see more of it. So I don't think we're having any unique problems just to our city. It's a nationwide problem that we need to address, probably federally, that we can only enact here locally through the state.
What are some things you think the city can continue to do and perhaps build on to address the issue of the unhoused in the city?
I think the Amador Crossing is going to be great. That is another system that we're going to have housing next to Community of Hope. We're working on getting the rest of the funding for that. I've already seen the designs. That should be really good. It's going to be right next to where they have their resources. So if they need to actually discuss what their drug treatment plan might look like, it's right there. If they need to have their kids in Jardín de los Niños, it's going to be there. We're gonna have the resources right next to Community of Hope. So once that happens, we're building more housing right now too. 3 different communities should be going online in the next year or two. So I'm encouraged by that.
Have you had the opportunity to talk with those who are unhoused in our city and perhaps share some understanding of what they may be dealing with?
I have had a couple of interactions. A while back I talked to a gentleman because I wanted to buy him a coffee, and he explained it was just a hurdle of bad luck, that he had been a construction worker and fallen and broken his hip and couldn't get back into the system. So here he was, stuck between where his home is and where he was going, and here he is. So, and then I also think of people who have reached out to say, look, my rent's going up from $825 to $1,000. No, it was $1,200, I'm sorry, even higher. They're on a fixed income, what do they do? So things like that make me concerned, like what does that look like? When I've been here since I was in college, the same amount of rent that I was paying is twice the amount that it is now in the same apartments. So to me, that says, how are we going to sustain that for people who want to make a chance of it here? It's going to be really hard. So I worry about that.
How can the city make some choices to address affordable housing that are going to lead to sustainable change?
It's going to be interesting because we're going to need buy-in from people who might have preconceived notions of people in apartments. And I've heard that a lot too, where they say, oh gosh, I lived in an apartment for a long time. I was a contributing member to society, but I wasn't there to buy a house, right? I wasn't in the place for it. I didn't need it at the time. So we have to look at, we will have to build more apartment complexes. People will need smaller homes. I'm a big fan of tiny homes. I've already had that conversation with our housing gal, and she was like, yes, that could be something we can do, but she explained to me too, a lot of these restrictions are regulations from the state. So what does that look like? How can we kind of negotiate that? And she says, I'm on it. I'm looking at XYZ that's happening in Santa Fe right now. Let's see if we can make that happen down here. And those are the things I'm encouraged by.
Do you think the city's doing enough to address affordable housing?
I think so. I'm still having more conversations because they sat me down and gave me the PowerPoint presentations, and it was just like, here's how the federal funding works, and this is within the negotiations we have to do with that. Honestly, kind of blew my mind because you have to negotiate that with the regulations that they have and how we can pull that in here. So I think yes, we do, but it's definitely what you always hear. It's the slow pace of bureaucracy that's really hard, because from the outside you just definitely don't think anything's happening. But when you walk in there and they have stacks of paperwork from back and forth, and you realize, oh gosh, they're working, but it is slow and there's so many players to it.
What about the state level? Is there anything that you share with state officials in our area about what they could do to help out the city of Las Cruces with
I'm
housing?
still in sort of the negotiation stage of that, because I know a lot of the legislators kind of from years of, like Carrie Hamblin, she was my radio teacher back in the day. So, I know her in that way, so we need to have longer conversations about what that looks like. And before I went to the session, I sat down with her too, more to like, well, what do I expect? What does that look like? In what ways can I be the most effective? And so she helped guide me with that. These are the other conversations. We might have a new slate of officials depending at the end of the year, but it's just a matter of having these conversations. And I think at one point we had just suggested too, is there a way that we can have joint conversations, and not just with our legislators, but with the county too? Can we actually have conversations like the opioid settlement funds? If we combine our settlement funds, can we have a greater impact? These are the questions I want to ask. We need to sit down together and ask those questions.
It'll be interesting to see how that turns out and possible collaboration that you're discussing. Transportation, obviously a concern for many in the region.
Yes.
Getting around the city, it may be more challenging for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
What are some steps that you think the city needs to take to continue to address better transportation?
I am really excited about our free bus program that we, put into motion, no pun intended. But I think that we need to look at the various ways that we consider transportation to be what it is, right? So when we have road work and we change, say, a trail system, and we don't build a detour for it because we don't consider it to be something that they use to get to work, when people do. So when we think about how do people engage with our trail systems, should we think about, the commuters? When we say, okay, we're going to put bike lanes in, are they protected bike lanes? I would like to see more of that. I like to see, because to a certain extent, I love traveling by bike, but I also don't feel safe a lot of times because cars are a little bit faster than I'd like, right? So how do we look at that? Can we make traffic calming things? For example, what I'd learned too is that some of the bigger streets don't have a policy for them, like the arterials and collectors. I know that sounds really dry, but this idea of we have to have these policies so that we can do things like traffic calming to make it slower, to make it safer for everybody, and not just pedestrians and cyclists, but for cars too. So a lot of times you don't want to have somebody jump in front of your car. You want to be in a safe area. So it's just a matter of looking at how we integrate all of that together. And once we have an active transportation person, we're hiring. So if anybody would like to kind of help us do that, that's what we need right now.
The city of Las Cruces recently hired a new city manager to oversee the employees of Las Cruces, major employer in the area. During that process where the council was approving that selection, you voted no. Can you tell us why you voted no?
I was concerned a little bit about the process of how we made a selection. Part of my background is writing, so I wanted to have more awareness of how this process was for the city. And I think that there could have been more input. I think that that citizens should have a say, and at least if it is an internal or external search, that they should be able to come up and say, this is what we'd like to see, or these are the qualities we would like to see. Just to have that back and forth is something that I would like to have.
Do you think the city of Las Cruces has a transparency problem?
I don't think so. I think that it's a measure of deciding what stories to tell and what narrative to hold, right? To a certain extent, we need to consider what do people need that is critical to their lives. Do they need to know about how the detour of a street will happen, and in what quickness do they need to know that, right? Versus, that there might be an award for someone that had been given. So things like that is consideration. This is something that I'm addressing right now with the city manager, is this idea of let's be more communicative with our constituents, not just from them talking to us, but also responding in the ways that they want to hear information.
You, of course, voted against the selection of the new city manager because you had a problem with the communication, from what you said. Mm-hmm. The Las Cruces Bulletin filed a complaint about what they said 1 to 3 potential violations of the Open Meetings Act during what they called a lightning quick city manager selection process. Any more thoughts you want to share with that when folks are thinking that there's a transparency issue with the city council?
I think there's a way of, we listen to the staff a lot of times to hear how we should go about this. I kept joking too, I really wish that there would have been a binder of how do you make a resolution? How do you actually engage? What forums should you be talking to? How should you be working best with constituents? And I think there wasn't a lot of that, at least for me, to learn what we were doing. So I think that there's a measure of newness that we have right now on City Council that makes us all kind of go, well, how do we best do this? And I am relying on staff to kind of keep me informed and part of that.
Do you feel that so far the conversations you're having with the city and employees with this issue are productive?
Yeah, it seems, I mean, they're responding in ways of like, when I say, hey, for example, they had someone come to City Council to say, we have a problem with the aquatic center. And we all knew that the part had been shipped, right? There was an actual part that we needed to get fabricated. That we couldn't have stopped the meeting and said, ma'am, we have that part shipped right now. Things like that where we can have somebody walk out of a meeting and go, oh, I was informed. That's where I'd like to see it.
So you're thinking there could be changes perhaps within the way the meetings are being carried out?
Where the meeting's being carried out, but how we share information. For example, that could be something that could be on social media too.
A major concern, of course, for folks in the city is economic development and sustainable economic development. Mm-hmm. You live in an area and represent an area that's undergoing a lot of changes in recent years. Yeah. New businesses, local businesses. You have a downtown that is been sort of revived, if one might say, in the last decade or so, mm-hmm. with new businesses. How do you keep that momentum going?
I think you could try different things. I think I'm relying on local entrepreneurs to take that chance, right? So how can we best support them? I think we have meetings every Wednesday for some of the entrepreneurs who want to actually create their own business. I think the conversations of how we diversify are going to be more interesting. I know that I've been telling people I'd love to see a bakery down there. You know, I enjoy Little Toad, but let's think of a bakery too. Is there a way that we can expand that so when somebody comes in with a novel idea that we jump on it? And I think we have a department too that is willing to have that conversation. So I'm looking forward to support that however I can.
I just have over a minute left with you, but I want to talk with you about water because I think we should talk about that in our region. Yep. It's a very important issue. What steps do you think the city needs to continue to build on to ensure that we have clean drinking water in the city?
I think we have a really good plan in place. Full disclosure, I used to write for Las Cruces Utilities as well. So I got a kind of a sense that they were doing proactive measures to make sure that we have the drinking water we need. They have monitoring wells where they basically watch our aquifer and make sure that we recharge it to the ways that need to happen. So I have good faith that this is a system that we can really build on and continue to grow. Okay,
now for your goal serving this district,
yes.
What are some things that you have for the long term that you want to lay the groundwork for?
I'm a big fan of communication. I think I've kind of made that apparent in this too. I want people to feel heard. I want them to engage with the city. I thought to myself that a lot of people see the city as this monolith outside themselves. And while there's like 1,700 people, they are your neighbors. They're the people that are helping make the city serve you. So have that conversation with us specifically, reach out to us and kind of say, this is what I see. And I've had that in droves, and I'm really grateful for that because I can't be everywhere, but I appreciate that the trust that has been given, and it's a huge responsibility too.
Cassie McClure is the District 1 Las Cruces City Councilor. Cassie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on, pecans are a big business in New Mexico. An event held this year in Mesilla celebrated the industry with food, music, vendors, and lots of fun. Our producer, Christian Valle, shares more in this segment of Living Here.
So this Pecan Festival, this is the third year that we're having this festival. The first 2 years were 2016 and 2017. So this is our first post-COVID year and we're really excited. The mission of the festival is to bring awareness to our pecan industry. Pecans have health benefits. They bring economic growth to our region and to our state. So we wanted to highlight that nut, no pun intended, and started this festival as an opportunity to highlight it within our community. Well, we have shopping, music, food vendors who are highlighting pecan dishes on their menu this weekend. You can buy pecans to take home with you. You can buy pecan earrings. We have it all here.
This is the third New Mexico Pecan Festival. I was part of the first one, so it's always exciting to be back and be able to do it again. We have all local pecans here from the Mesilla Valley, and then we have our pecan brittle, our pecan pie in a jar, pecan halves and pieces, just to really celebrate the local economy and agriculture that New Mexico has to celebrate. Pecans are a staple of southern New Mexico, and so this is a great way to be able to celebrate them and to really showcase what our state has to offer. I am born and raised. My family has been in the pecan industry for 4 generations, so I've kind of been bred in it and have grown to love it. And yeah, I've been here my entire life and just enjoyed what New Mexico has to offer. And then our best seller is our pecan brittle. It's very soft and buttery and almost melts in your mouth. It's not like a typical pecan brittle that's real tacky. So that's one of our best sellers. Along with our pecan coffee, it gives you a unique flavor in the morning. You can have your bizcochitas and pecan coffee and you know you're in southern New Mexico, right? Every year is not a fantastic year, and I always say being with farmers, you're always with a gambler, because it's the ultimate gamble of one year's great and maybe the next year isn't, but it's the perseverance, the determination and true grit that carries you through from year to year.
Our New Mexico Pecan Festival, that's on Facebook. They can visit nmpecanfest.com. We have tons of information there. We're excited to see what it holds. God willing, we'll be back next year.
That is it for our program this week. Please remember you can always keep updated with the latest news anytime at krwg.org. I'm Anthony Moreno. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.